guys, welcome to Lady Shuna. I am a new Tensura channel. In this video we will continue the chapter 1, of volume 19, of Tensura light novel. If you haven't watched the previous video, please feel free to visit my channel. The links can also be found in the description below. If you like this kind of content, then please consider leaving a like, and subscribe to the channel. All media used in this video, are used in the purpose of entertainment and education, under the terms of fair use. All clips, images and music belongs to their respective owners. So without further ado, let's get into the video.
In his conversation with Rimuru, Guy seems to be fed up, when he was asked what he really thought about everything, particularly Velzard as an enemy. He mentioned that, normally, he'd create an alternate space, and fight there, but even himself can't control Velzard. It doesn't even matter if she agrees to it, Guy simply thinks that it was impossible for him to impose something of his own convenience onto her. Rimuru internally agreed with Guy's thoughts, since he also didn't think that the barrier used at Walpurgis was going to be able to control Velzard. And clearly, although Guy could have more powerful techniques, he seems to have decided that it was still too difficult.
Well then, I guess Guy-san's role will be a tough one. It's too much for us to handle, so for this, we'll let Guy-san show us what he's made of.
Actually, Guy was about to say something, but Rimuru cut him off by ignoring him, and went on with the conversation. That's because Rimuru's instincts was telling him that if he didn't, he would surely be caught in the middle of it all. Guy seemed to be convinced, although he was glaring at Rimuru resentfully. Rimuru felt a slight relief, and switched his thoughts to another threatening enemy, Zalario.
So, Diablo, how did it go with Zalario?
Kufufu, to be honest, Zalario is a strong opponent. If we compare on simple strength alone, he might even be better than Feldway.
Rimuru was shook by Diablo's personal assessment of Zalario. So Diablo explained why. He told Rimuru that Feldway would come to his opponent if they taunt him, but Zalario is a cold-hearted warrior. Psychological warfare does not work on him. Diablo also added that that's what makes Zalario a very uninteresting enemy, but that's also why they need to play their strengths wisely. In which Guy agreed.
Yeah, Zalario's always been strong, unlike Cornu and the others. He was quite useful in the fight against the world-destroying dragon, Ivaraj.
Rimuru understood that Zalario was indeed a solid opponent, since it's a common knowledge that the strongest were those whose minds could remain undisturbed in a battle. No matter how strong an opponent are, if they run away, as soon as they are about to lose a battle, they are not a threat. On the other hand, one cannot let his guard down until the very end against an opponent who does not give up, no matter how difficult the situation, because that would be troublesome. Rimuru knows that Cornu was the former, and Zalario was the latter. As a matter of fact, in the case of Cornu, he had a good lieutenant, whom Guy paid more attention to than Cornu himself. But since Cornu and his team had been already defeated, Rimuru thought that there was no point in talking about them anyway. Instead, they should just focus on something which is really important at the moment, and that was the fact that Zalario is a threat.
However, right after Feldway reappeared, his movements became monotonous. Something must have happened to him.
Diablo said interestingly, and since he was suspicious of Zalario, he had kept a watchful eye on him. Then, he concluded that it was not a trap, but some kind of anomaly. What was interesting was the fact that it was just after Feldway's move. Then, Rimuru started to wonder about Feldway's purpose in the first place.
He didn't participate in Kigali and the others' battle, right?
Diablo answered yes. He also added that as soon as he saw Feldway, he was put under Michael's control, but Feldway himself kept a watchful eye on him. Learning about that, Benimaru and Rimuru looked at each other. A realization hits them both. That is, if Feldway had entered the battle earlier, they would not have made it in time and Kigali would have been killed. Consequently, Sylvia-san would have been in danger if that had happened. Rimuru finds it unnatural for Feldway to not make a move, and unless he had no intention of doing anything, there was no need to go to the place where Kigali and the others were fighting. Rimuru started thinking of the reason why Feldway did that.
There must have been a purpose, right?
I suppose so.
One possibility is that our speculation was correct.
Guy nodded, looking convinced. Rimuru hated to admit it, but that was the only explanation he could think of.
Suppose we should assume that Feldway can also use the ultimate dominion.
What do you mean?
As if she had something in mind, Kigali seemed to be thinking about it deeply as well. After pondering for a while, she opened her mouth.
I don't expect for you to believe my opinion, but...
Kigali started the conversation in that way, since she knows that she was in a delicate position. However, Guy, although seemingly recognized Kigali as the ex-demon Lord Kazalim at first glance, looks like he was ready to listen to her, without a care in the world, and even believes in her, so she doesn't need to hold back. Kigali replied that Guy was still as confident as ever. She also clarified that since she's not a demon lord anymore, she'll just be Kigali. Then, with a small smile, Kigali began to speak her thoughts. To summarize Kigali's story, she had made plans to betray Feldway after consulting with Leon in secret since she had free will before his arrival. Then, after walking a tightrope of a battle, just as she was about to jump into the magic transfer circle, Feldway showed up. That's when she was taken over without even being allowed to resist. The timing was so bad that it could only be described as bad luck. On the other hand, it would have been a perfectly happy ending if she could have escaped to Tempest with Yuki, who had apparently regained his self-awareness. However, because it was a hypothetical story, it was meaningless to talk about that now. In any case, Feldway and the Domination were no doubt had a close relationship. In other words, there was an increase in Diablo's reasoning credibility. But Rimuru didn't like to admit that, so he presented a negative possibility.
The problem is the condition for triggering the ultimate dominion. Michael seems to be able to transfer certain powers, and it may be possible to activate it from a distance as long as someone can see you.
In Rimuru's case, he's able to exert a certain amount of power over the area he could see through the Argus spell. This was one of the secret techniques that allows him to take people by surprise from a great distance, which is the reason why he wanted to keep it secret as much as possible. But he had realized that what he could do, others could do as well. However, Guy denied it.
It's possible, but if it's a spatial power, or even a power that affects the mind, I think the conditions for activating it would be more severe.
Rimuru was convinced that was the case. That's because spatial transportation requires one to know the positional coordinates of the destination. One could influence the area around the coordinates as an application, if he or she could get that information. Or, if they knew the positional coordinates, it would also gonna be easy to activate the spell. Rimuru gave it a thought, and it made him feel it vain that he was so happy when he said it was a secret technique. In the first place, Michael's eye was not only Feldway, and it was odd that when Michael gave Kigali the power, she was free. In other words, Michael becoming more cautious was probably because of Obera's betrayal. Rimuru also pondered that Michael would not have needed to rely on Feldway if he had been able to activate the ultimate dominion when he became more alert. However, since that was not the case, there must be a reason why Feldway was Michael's eye. Rimuru could not help but ask himself if Feldway was given the ultimate dominion, just like what Diablo said.
This is a speculation, but Michael has taken in Velgrin's dragon factor. If so, it would not be surprising if he was able to utilize her parallel existence ability.
Rimuru realized that his thoughts were indeed a possibility after CL's speculation. Despite Rimuru having thoughts that a certain level of control could indeed be lent to Feldway, he hadn't expected Michael to have duplicated all of the abilities. Nevertheless, he could not ignore Seal-san's opinion, and now it really felt as if he was dealing with Michael, and was enlightened why Feldway could use the ultimate dominion. On the contrary, Feldway could use Castle Guard as well, so it was probably why Rimuru's attacks were completely unsuccessful. By then, Rimuru had also realized that Feldway had been bluffing when he blocked his sword, because in reality he hadn't even needed to defend himself. Rimuru felt a relief that he didn't show off his secret techniques.
What Guy says is correct, but if Feldway can use the same powers as Michael, doesn't that explain what happened?
Huh? So Michael was ceding his power to Feldway?
No, not that. I'm saying, as much as I hate to admit it, that both of them can utilize the same powers.
What? What the hell are you talking about? No, so it's that. Velgrin's parallel existence?
Guy easily understood what Rimuru was trying to say, thus, they both frowned at that unpleasant speculation. Rimuru was hoping that he was wrong, but that was also the reason why he definitely thought it to be the case.